Welcome to Dusty Trail Tales. Today we ride into the heart of Trail of Tears, the Apache's final fight. A tale of resilience, betrayal, and the last defiant stand of the Apache warriors against the relentless tide of American expansion. From the dusty mesas to the bloody battlegrounds, we'll uncover the true story of how the U.S. government sought to crush the Apache spirit, only to ignite a fire that burned for over a decade. Saddle up, folks. The frontier awaits. In the unforgiving winter of 1875, a bitter wind howled through the jagged canyons of Arizona Territory, where the sun-bleached bones of the desert met treacherous mountain passes cloaked in snow. A ragged column of men, women, and children, proud Apache and Yavapai people, trudged onward under the stern gaze of blue-coated U.S. soldiers. Their feet bled on the frozen ground, their spirits unbroken, but their bodies pushed to the edge of endurance. This was no voluntary journey. It was a forced march into exile, a Southwestern Trail of Tears that would etch deep scars into the soul of a resilient nation. The roots of this tragedy stretch back through decades of conflict in the lawless frontier of the American Southwest. The Apaches, fierce guardians of the vast deserts and rugged mountains, had long clashed with intruders, first Mexican settlers, then American prospectors driven by an insatiable hunger for golden land. Tribes like the Tonto Apache and their allies, the Yavapai, had carved out lives in the fertile Verde Valley, a rare oasis amid the arid wilderness. But peace was as fragile as a prairie dust storm. In 1871, President Ulysses S. Grant had established the Rio Verde Reservation near Camp Verde, offering the natives a promise of safety and self-sufficiency. General George Crook, the iron-fisted commander whom the Apaches called Gray Wolf, had recently quelled uprisings through relentless campaigns, earning a promotion to brigadier general in 1873. Yet corruption festered in the shadows. Influential contractors in Tucson, known as the Tucson Ring, schemed for profit, lobbying Washington to consolidate tribes onto fewer reservations. Their whispers swayed the powers in the capital. Fewer reserves meant lower costs and deeper pockets for the greedy. With a single decree, Grant abolished the Rio Verde Reserve in early 1875, condemning nearly 1,500 Yavapai and Tonto Apaches to relocate 180 miles east to the San Carlos Reservation, a desolate strip along the Gila River, scornfully dubbed Hell's 40 Acres for its blistering heat and barren soil. General Crook protested, foreseeing the hostility it would breed, but orders from on high were unyielding. The removal commenced on February 27, 1875, in the heart of winter, led by Army officers and reluctant Apache scouts. The families bundled themselves in tattered blankets, elders borne on crude litters, children weeping as they abandoned their farms and sacred ancestral sites. The trail snaked through merciless terrain, from the lush valleys of the Verde River, up steep escarpments, across the snow-swept pines of the Mogollon Rim, and down into the dusty plains. Blizzards descended like vengeful spirits, rations dwindled to meager hardtack and spoiled beef, and disease stalked the weary column. One survivor would later recall, "We walked through snow up to our knees, the old ones falling by the wayside. Exposure and starvation claimed lives each day. Some were shot for daring to resist, others felled by influenza or sheer exhaustion. Of the 1,376 souls who began the trek, 375 Yavapai alone perished, their bodies left in shallow graves along the path. Mothers buried infants with tears that froze upon the earth, their grief echoing through the canyons. They staggered into San Carlos on March 20th, depleted and heartsick, with over 100 lives lost to the merciless trail. John Clum, the youthful agent appointed by the Dutch Reformed Church, welcomed them with vows of support, but the reality was a grim farce. Overcrowded and starved of resources, the reservation simmered like a powder keg. By 1876, even the Chiricahua Apaches, led by Nietzsche, son of the legendary Cochise, and the unyielding Geronimo, were herded there after their own lands were seized. Geronimo, whose name meant one who yawns but whose raids instilled terror in settlers' hearts, bristled under the confinement. "We were treated like dogs," he would later declare in his autobiography. Far from quenching the Apache spirit, this Trail of Tears kindled a blaze of defiance. Corrupt agents and scant supplies fueled discontent, and bands erupted from the reservation time and again. Victorio's War erupted in 1879, a whirlwind of raids across New Mexico that ended with his death at Tres Castillos in 1880. But it was Geronimo's campaigns that etched themselves into legend. In 1881, he fled San Carlos with 700 followers, only to be dragged back and break free once more in 1885, launching a guerrilla saga through the Sierra Madre Mountains. Geronimo's band, reduced to a mere 38 warriors, women, and children, danced like shadows across the borderlands, evading 5,000 U.S. troops and Mexican forces for over a year. They struck with the precision of desert winds, ambushing supply trains, melting into hidden canyons. General Nelson Miles took command from Crook, deploying innovative heliographs for signaling and enlisting Apache scouts to hunt their own kin. In one audacious strike, Geronimo's men pilfered horses from beneath the soldiers' noses at Fort Apache. The pursuit climaxed in the sweltering summer of 1886. Cornered in Skeleton Canyon, Arizona, Geronimo parleyed with Lieutenant Charles Gatewood, an old foe who spoke the Apache tongue and commanded respect. "Once I moved about like the wind," Geronimo lamented. "Now I surrender to you, and that is all." On September 4th, 1886, he relinquished his Winchester rifle to General Miles, the last great Apache leader to bow. It signaled the twilight of organized native resistance in the Southwest. Yet triumph rang hollow. The Chiricahuas were banished as prisoners of war to distant Florida, then Alabama and Oklahoma, torn from their beloved homeland. Geronimo lived out his days until 1909 at Fort Sill, reduced to a curiosity in Wild West shows, forever yearning for Arizona's majestic peaks. The Apache's Trail of Tears and their final, unyielding fight forged the brutal coda to the Wild West era, a saga of resilience against insurmountable odds. From the frozen March of 1875 to Geronimo's defiant thunder, it stands as a haunting reminder of how the frontier was claimed, not merely with 6 guns and grit, but at the expense of ancient cultures and unbreakable spirits. In the echoes of those canyons, one wonders, what shadows of that struggle still whisper through the winds of America today? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more tales from the untamed West, like gold in the dust, the fever that forged fortunes. Until next time, keep the campfire burning.